Okay, today we're going to work on how to solve equations, but for today's lesson, they're all going to have a 1 in front of the x squared. So there's no other number there in because this is in standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. But your a value is just a 1. So today's lesson, it's only going to be equations where there's just a 1 in front. Oops. So the first thing we need to do is you're going to find two factors that multiply to be your C number and add to be the B value. So today we're going to be doing a lot of multiplication. Hopefully you know your multiplication tables. So we need to find two things that multiply together, two factors that multiply together to be your C number, and then when you add them together they'll be your B number. Okay, for example, if we're using x squared plus 9x plus 18. This is ax squared plus bx plus c. So your b value is the number in front of the x, so b is 9. Your C value is whatever's at the end by itself, so your C value is positive 18. So here you're trying to find things that multiply together to be your C value, so the 18. So two numbers that multiply together to be the C value, but they're going to add to be the B value, and the B value is 9. You'll get to a point where you should be able to do this kind of in your head, but if you, especially when you have numbers that have lots of factors, it is a lot easier just to write them out. One way to do this, and this is the way I usually do it, is I created a chart, a table. Another way you'll hear a lot of teachers do is called a magic X. So I'm going to show it to you just because I know a lot of the Boulder Creek teachers use it, so I don't want you to go to your next class and be completely lost. What they'll do is they'll do an X, and they'll do what multiplies together to be 18 but adds to be 9 like this. You'll start figuring out whatever works for you. So what I like is a table. So I'm going to list out everything that multiplies to be 18. So 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. And then I'm going to add those together. 1 plus 18 is 19. That's not the answer. So I'll just put an X there. Because they need to add to be 9. 2 plus 9 is 11. That's not 9. 3 plus 6 equals 9. So yes, this is going to be what works. So you have to keep thinking of two numbers that multiply to be your C value, but they also add to be your B value. So if you can't think of them, I'm going to say I want to see your list of what you've tried so far. But a lot of times you'll start doing this part in your head. So you're going to take, because we're trying to figure out what's going to multiply together to be this polynomial. So it's going to be an x and an x, because x times x will get me my x squared. Then these are the rest of that binomial. So it's a positive 3, so put plus 3. And that's a positive 6, so put plus 6. Or you could flip them. You could do x plus 6 first, and then x plus 3. Because when you multiply, it's commutative. Multiplication can be moved around, and you get the same answer. So if it just says to factor, I want to know the two factors. This is your answer. These are the factors. So if I took those and I FOILed them out, so if I took x times x, I would get x squared x times 6 is 6x. 3 times x is 3x. And then 3 times 6 is 18. And then combine your like terms in the middle. 6x's plus 3x's is 9x's. And just double check that's what the original question was. X squared plus 9x plus 18. You don't have to do this checking, but if you're on a test or something, you might want to recheck your work by doing that. So that's all it means, is you're going to try and figure out what's some binomials that multiply together to end up with this whole polynomial. Okay, let's try another one. X squared plus 11x plus 30. It's in standard form, so your b value is 11 and c is your 30. So I want to find two numbers that multiply together to be your c. So the c is 30. But they add to be the b value, and the b is 11. Okay, so you're going to start listing out what we have. So to multiply to be 30, 1 times 30 is 30. 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. And you're finding what adds together to be 31, or not 31, 11. 1 plus 30 is 31, so that's not it. 2 plus 15 is 17, that's not it. 3 plus 10 is 13, that's not it. 5 plus 6 is 11, so that one is the correct answer. So you're looking for two numbers that multiply together to be your c value, but they have to add together to be the b value. So your numbers are positive 5 and positive 6. So we're going to write out that factor as x plus 5 times x plus 6. Or you can do x plus 6 times x plus 5, bless you. And then if you wanted to check, just FOIL it out, and you'll end up with x squared plus 11x plus 30. Okay, the tricky part gets when there's a negative. So if I have an example like x squared plus 13x minus 30. So my b value is my 13. My c value is negative 30. So you have to make sure to watch the symbol that's in front. 13 is positive, but 30 has a minus sign in front of it. So you want to think of two numbers that multiply to be negative 30, and they add to be positive 13. So this is going to be important. So if two numbers multiply to get a negative, hopefully you're very comfortable with your multiplication tables and your positive and negatives. So to get a negative when you multiply, you guys know that one of the numbers needs to be negative, not both. Because if I have a negative times a negative, it's going to be positive. So we need to think of two numbers that multiply together to be negative 30. So if I think about, I can do positive 1, negative 30. I could do negative 1, positive 30. Because those will multiply together to get negative 30. I could do 2 times negative 15. Or I can do negative 2 times positive 15. I could do 3 times negative 10. or negative 3 times positive 10. I could do 5 times negative 6, or negative 6 times 5. So when you're multiplying, you have to end up with a negative. So that means one of the numbers has to be negative. Now you're going through and checking which one adds together to be positive 13. I got a negative 29. This will be positive 29. This will be negative 13. This one's positive 13. I have my answer right here. Negative 2 and positive 15. Okay, then I'm going to write that out as the factors. The answer is going to be x minus 2 and x plus 15. Or you can switch them around and put x plus 15 and then the x minus 2. And if you are somebody that likes the magic x, so what you would have done is what multiplies together to be negative 30 but adds to be 13. And you try to figure out what that is, and then that's negative 2 and 15. Okay. So that's just coming up with the factors. Now the next step is to actually solve those factors. So we're going to have questions that are going to say solve. Okay, this is 1A. X squared minus 8x equals negative 12. To do these, the first step is you have to make the equation equal to 0. So right now it says it equals negative 12. So you can't do anything until you have it equal 0. So write yourself a note. First thing you have to do is have it equal to 0. So right now it says equals negative 12. So to get rid of negative 12, we're going to add 12. If I add 12 to one side, I have to add it to the other. It is not a like term, so I'm going to kind of put it over to the side a little bit. So now my equation is x squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. For these, there is a reason. I need to ask, because if not, if we flip it over here, it's going to make it negative x squared, and the whole graph goes down. That's okay, yeah, you can do it like that. Okay, now this is where it's in standard form. So it's in ax squared plus bx plus c. So my b value is negative 8. And my c value is 12. And now this is where I need to come up with what multiplies to be positive 12 and adds to be negative 8. So it has to multiply to be the c value and add to be the b value. So when we're multiplying and we're going to get a positive answer, a positive times a positive is positive, but also a negative times a negative is positive. So if I'm going to add, I'm going to end up with a negative. That means I have to have two negatives here. So it's going to have to be a negative times a negative to get this positive 12. Okay, so if we think about our multiples of 12, or not multiples of 12, your factors of 12, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. It needs to add to be a negative. So if I look at those and think, where can I get a negative 8? Well, I know 2 plus 6 is 8. So if I make them both negative, negative 2 plus negative 6 is negative 8. And then negative 2 times negative 6, a negative times a negative, is positive 12. So my numbers that multiply, my factors, are negative 2 and negative 6. So a negative times a negative is positive. A negative plus another negative is just more negatives. Okay, so then we're going to write that out as the factors, just like we did before. So it's going to be x minus 2 and times x minus 6. Make it equal to 0. So that's what we did in the last example. But now we have to solve these. So you're going to take both of these and set them equal to 0. So x minus 2 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. So this is what we did in the last module. If you can do this step in your head, you don't have to show any work here. But solve for x. So add 2 to both sides, and I get x is positive 2. And then on this side, add 6 to both sides, and I end up with x is 6. And there's your two solutions. And that just means this equation, when I graph it, it's going to hit at 2 and at 6. I don't know exactly what this graph looks like, but I'm going to guess something like that. Okay, 1B then. So right now, look at your notes. Tomorrow, when we're working on our exit ticket, are you going to be able to look at your notes and know what the heck you did? So look at your notes. Make sure you wrote that you have to make the equation equal to 0 first. Do your factors, and then solve the factors. Okay, 1B. The equation is x squared minus 2x equals 15. Okay, go ahead and get that equation equal to 0 first. The first thing you want to do is subtract 15, and if you do that to one side of the equation, do it to the other side of the equation. There's no like term though. So my equation is x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals 0. Okay, your b value is negative 2, c value is negative 15. So negative 2 was your b and negative 15 is the c. So we need to figure out what multiplies together to be negative 15, but what adds together to be negative 2. So if I'm multiplying two numbers and they need to end up as a negative, that means one of my numbers has to be negative. Because a number times another number to be a negative, one of those has to be negative. So if I start thinking of just what's my regular factors of just positive 15, so 1 times 15, 3 times 5. I need to think about what combination is going to get me to 2. So that's going to be the 3 and 5. Okay, when I multiply them, they need to be negative 15. So that means one of them have to be negative, but when I add them, I have to get negative 2. So figure out, is the negative going to go on the 3 or is the negative going to go on the 5? When I add them, I have to end up with negative 2. Hopefully you figure it out. It's positive 3 and negative 5, because 3 plus negative 5 is negative 2. And 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So our factors are going to be x plus 3, because it's a positive 3, times x minus 5. And then set that equal to 0. Now solve both of the factors, having them equal to 0. So you're going to do x plus 3 equals 0. And then do x minus 5 equals 0. If you can do those in your head, go ahead. If you need to show work, that's fine too. I'm going to show work always just because I have people that are not sure where I'm getting my answers from. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and I end up with x equals -3 is one of the solutions. The other factor, I'm going to add 5 to both sides, and I end up with x is 5. So the solutions to this quadratic are -3 and +5. Okay, first question I would like you to work on. X squared plus 15x equals -54. Solve. So at the end you should have x equals, and then what the x's are. Equals -6 and x equals -9. How many people did get that one right? Okay. We're way ahead of the other algebra classes, so I'm going to make sure I'm going slow through this because I know this is brand new stuff, and this does get way, way harder. So I will go through this slow. Okay, here's another one. Number 2, x squared minus 13x equals -12. Go ahead and solve that. Okay, check your answers up here. So first, I figured out b is -13 and c is +12. So the two factors were -12 and 1. So the factors here needed to be x minus 12 and x minus 1. And then to solve those, I set them equal to 0. This step I did in my head, but I added 12, so x is 12. And then I added 1, x is 1. How many people got that one right? Okay. Okay, last one we're doing together for number 3. Or not together, you're doing with a partner. X squared minus x equals 56. Go ahead and solve that. How many people got that one right? Okay. Okay, I'm going to pause there because there's one more question, but I don't want us to hit like the time on the bell. So I'll just finish that last question tomorrow. It's just the word problem.